Hello and welcome to another episode of Work 2.0, the podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wells, and this is where we talk about all things AI, money, power, and the future of work. Today, I'm joined by guest Tiffany Gaskell. She's the CEO of Performance Consultants, and she is the co-author of the book behind me, Coaching for Performance, which is also written by Sir John Whitmore. Now, let me tell you why I'm so excited to have Tiffany on this show with me today, because I've been trying to get her on this show for the longest. And we're going back and forth with her EA, and finally we've got it arranged, so that's fantastic. Also, I'm a huge fan of the book because this was the book that got me started on my leadership journey. Well, not this edition, but the previous edition, and got me. This is like what I use to train myself as a leader, as a manager, as I worked up the ladder. So I've always referred to that and always had it on my desk. Now I've got the 6th edition, and Tiffany Gaskell is here with us to talk all about it. Welcome to the show, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's so fantastic to be here. And I love to hear about your relationship with the book. So many people say that, and it's wonderful to hear. So thank you.
Amazing. Yes, for sure. So with Coaching for Performance, this book, definitely a must read, absolutely a must read. And the 6th edition, I'm still reading through it. I haven't finished, I must confess. My schedule has been hectic, so crazy recently, but I'm trying to get in that reading. But it's obviously defined what we know as, modern coaching, not just coaching from a leadership perspective, but even just people who get hired to coach, like business coaches, life coaches, whatever, as well as leadership coaches. But since the last edition, the 6th edition, was published a couple of years ago, so much has changed. Interestingly, in the world of work, like, it's crazy how rapidly things have evolved because of AI. So now that we're fully in the AI era, what would you say, if you were to rewrite this book, what would you say has changed? What would you include or omit? What would be different?
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. That's such a great question. And you're right, so much has changed. I mean, who would have guessed? We went through COVID, and now we're in this era of disruption. So I think that with regard to the book, so the fundamentals are still very much intact, right? So we've got performance still equals potential minus interference. Awareness and responsibility, they are still the twin pillars of coaching. And psychological safety is still the environment that people need in which to flourish.
Oh, yeah.
So all of those stay the same, right?
The
thing that's different is that the complexity of interferences has escalated, and that's due to AI. So constant notifications, meeting summaries, all of this information means that it's disruptive to presence, human presence. So that's one of the things that I would say. It's sort of still true to Sir John Whitmore's teaching, as is the GROW model. The GROW model is not obsolete. So where you've got leaders who are in this environment of, they might be coaching between Slack and Zoom, and all this sorts of things going on. It's completely different. Imagine when John wrote the first versions of Coaching Performance, he was actually imagining someone sitting face to face in a room.
I know, exactly.
I mean, fancy that. So space and time continuum, completely different. And so GROW is really important as keeping the anchor for the structure of that conversation, even if it's happening in a virtual environment.
I love that. I think it's even more essential because people are losing trust even in leaders, because they're producing AI slop. But interestingly, they're losing trust in leadership because we're getting layoffs, which have been spurred on by AI. And people feel there's that sense of psychological safety in the workplace is long gone. No one feels like their job is safe anymore, whether it being that it will last long enough, or that their workplace often can be a toxic environment because there's so much change happening and they're not being kept abreast of what's going on. Some people get laid off as soon as they open their laptop without warning. So, there's that sense of fear. One of the things I want to touch on is a lot of leaders are using AI to work faster, move faster. We talk about Meta. Mark Zuckerberg talks about the year of efficiency and all of that. Everyone wants to be more efficient and faster. With that speed, do we risk compromising that deeper work of self-awareness and accountability that is so inherent to coaching?
Yeah, I think you're so right to draw that distinction. And I think that, we see both. So essentially, and kind of what prevails depends on the leadership, the leader's intention. So on the one hand, we see leaders who are sending notes for a conversation they weren't present at.
Yeah.
They are doing performance appraisals and doing development plans, the appearance of development plan without actually listening to the motivation of the person there.
Mm.
What's really terrifying me and really concerning is that we have got major players entering the coaching space who are actually tech firms in disguise with a very thin veneer of coaching credentials. And I think that is really worrying.
That's interesting. Can you tell me more about that? 'Cause I was literally just about to ask you that what would you think Sir John Whitmore would be most concerned about if he would see how things are today? But you're talking about, can you give me, not, maybe you can't name anyone, don't give examples, but describe what you're talking about.
Yeah, so we're seeing this happen, and we're seeing the AI coach enter the world of work, right? But the thing is, we're already seeing the backlash. So the backlash is coming from human coaches who are being undercut financially,
Of
because
course.
the market doesn't yet understand where does a human coach sit and where does an AI coach sit, and what there isn't a boundary. I mean, there isn't an overlap. It's very distinct, and we'll talk about that more, I'm sure. But also the backlash is coming from people in organizations, because people in organizations are like concerned about privacy. I'm not going to have a conversation with this AI coach when it's being monitored. And then safety, so this AI coach just gave me terrible advice on a really sensitive HR matter.
Right.
And efficacy. So, is this actual development, or is this just a tick box?
That's really interesting. AI coaches have been very much popularized. I'm seeing it in edtech platforms, which is one thing, but definitely I'm a coach, so I thought maybe it's just my own personal bias, but I do see there's a lot of value to a human coach. I think where there's a misconception, I think, is with the public, like you said, people who don't fully understand what coaching is or the value of it. They'll see an AI coach and say, well, this saves me a whole lot of money. I don't have to pay, $100 or £100 an hour for a real human coach. I can just do a subscription for $20 a month. You know what I mean?
I know, that's the thing. So it's a gold rush right now. It's a gold rush, and we're in that moment. And when we look back at it'll be so much clearer about what's happening. But right now we're in it, and it is incredibly disruptive. And we've got to get hold of the narrative quickly so that people understand what the difference is between an AI coach and a human coach.
What would you say are the differences then? Like, would you encourage someone to also use an AI coach? And if so, or if not, like, what are the differences?
Yeah. So there are two things I'm thinking of there. First of all, I'm thinking about how AI can be leveraged to help develop human capability, and I think that we've got to lean into being human in this new world. And
Yes.
so human capability, the human mind, human presence. So at Performance Consultants, what we're doing is we're using AI avatars within something called the Performance Studio. So leaders can go in there and they can test out their leadership skills. So for example, you can go practice a difficult conversation. And from in that environment, safe environment, you'll get feedback about, okay, so I asked 7 closed questions in a row, I interrupted, all of the things.
Right.
And feedback that's difficult, but it'd be difficult to get elsewhere in such an efficient manner.
Yeah.
And that is a great thing, because we're developing our human capability, and I think that's where we've got to focus.
Got it. And so when it comes to using a human coach, what are the things that a human coach can do that AI cannot do?
Yeah, so a human coach, right, the key thing is presence and human mind. And I just want us to really think about, these AI coaches are not replacing human beings, okay? And so what it is that so as a human coach, you've got access to things that AI coaches don't. So for example, as you are speaking during a coaching session, and you're realizing something, a new realization, then an AI coach will not pick that up. As you are, as you know how human coaches intuit the whole time, and so, and you know, we can reflect back, that feels like such and such. Well, AI coaches ain't doing that. And then you know, they can't witness your becoming. I mean, there's a whole profound nature of coaching, and you know, John Whitmore, he used to call it, he used to say about coaches that we are the midwives of human consciousness.
Oh, I love that. That's profound.
And I think that is the place where human coaches need to hang out and own and develop their abilities to raise awareness and responsibility, unlock human potential. And the AI coach can stay in the area that is about quick problem fixes, is transactional. So we're talking about transactional coaching versus transformational coaching.
I love that. I love that. When it comes to, you know, what employers want or what leaders want versus what people want, often there's a gap between ideas, a gap between expectations, what employees think is happening versus what leaders think is happening. For example, leaders and, you know, employers, of course, are focused on the business metrics, you know, ROI, productivity, efficiency, and that's why we get things like layoffs, you know, let's replace you with a robot without thinking, right? People are more concerned about developing in their career, and now they're focused on, obviously, because the job market is so unstable, they're looking at how can they build stable finances, you know, what are the other options available to them, and transferable skills, things like that, and connectivity and trust and growth and all those things. So today, how can leaders evolve to kind of reconcile their own priorities, you know, of speed, productivity, ROI, all of that, with what employees actually desire?
I mean, that sums up the central tension of our time, doesn't it? And here's the thing, I don't think we resolve it. I think that we learn to hold both. And that's a stretch. We are being stretched as a human race. We are being stretched right now.
Yeah. It's a tough time to be a leader. It's not a joke.
It's a really tough time. And this is the reason why, you know, coaching skills in leadership are so important right now, because that adaptability, that awareness of self, you've got to have that centeredness so that you can go through this. So there are organizations, on the one hand, there are organizations who are chasing productivity gains through AI metrics, as you said, right? And they are winning the efficiency game. They are losing the innovation game. They're losing the innovation game because psychological safety has to be present for creativity to happen.
Yes.
And that is not in those organizations.
Right.
Those organizations will find out that to their cost. Then there are more thoughtful organizations that are looking at the tasks that can be handled by AI, and they are enabling people to do more as a result of AI. And that means that people are stepping into strategy, and they're stepping into transformation. And a lot of my work as a coach has been about enabling people. You know, we talk about working on the business rather than getting sucked into the business the whole time. That is a whole thing. AI can enable that right there.
Yes, got it. So just wrapping up, when it comes to where you see, this podcast about the future of work. So when it comes to where you see the future of how AI and human performance management are combined by leaders to create like the ultimate psychological safety and the ultimate human experience in the workplace. When it comes to the future of that, like looking 3 to 5 years from now, what's your vision? What do you see?
Yeah. So I think that, you know, as we've talked about, presence is absolutely key, right? And human coaches have got presence completely in their remit. What happens then is that there are some human coaches who are trying to beat the AI coach at efficiency, speed, and cost. That's not going to happen. Like, don't even try to win that race, right? The tech companies have already won that race.
Yeah.
However, as a human coach, if you develop your potential, your ability to, do deep transformational work, then you'll not only valuable, you're essential.
Right.
So then when we think about like in 5 years time, right, I think that the market will be clear about where the AI coach sits and where the human coach sits. And so when the gold rush is over, right, and it's created its casualties and its lessons, then it will be much clearer to us at that point in time, as opposed to now it's like we're in the disruption.
I'm glad you said that. Well, there's one thing that has consistently kind of been embedded in the conversations I've been having with CEOs recently, with AI experts, when I've been writing for Forbes, as well as even podcasts. And that one theme that keeps popping up is human relationships, human connection. Like, you know, even when it comes to, when I was talking to the father of AGI the other week about, you know, if AGI becomes a thing and all jobs are obsolete, what's left? The human connection, again, that human relationship building. And he was talking about teachers, they can't be replaced because there's that element of human connection, relationship building with children that a robot just cannot mimic. So it's kind of like, when all is said and done, and you're saying the exact same thing, ultimately your unique selling point as a coach or even as a leader is leaning into that, that presence, that intuition, that judgment, that deep transformational work, like you said, rather than trying to compete with a tool.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you. And I think that we're in an area, we're living it at the moment, and it's always hard to be in it. And but it's so great to have these conversations because it's a clarifying moment.
It is, and I hope for those listening, number one, if you're a coach listening to this, don't feel too threatened or worried about AI replacing your role. Right now, obviously, there's this gold rush and everyone's going crazy and everyone's saying, it's okay, I don't need a service, I'll go to an app. Don't worry, they'll come back to you. That's what I'm saying. They'll come back to you. And it's also about how you position yourself. Are you positioning yourself as just offering like a checkbox service? Or are you positioning yourself as a deep transformation person? Positioning is very key in this moment. If you're offering the exact same thing as an AI tool, then effectively what Tiffany's saying is you're competing against the bot and you're going to lose in that race. And then ultimately, again, talking to leaders, I think this is what this tells you is finding a way to build that psychological safety in your team is ultimately important. AI can never replace that. And especially if you're going through a lot of change in your organization, with layoffs, you know, sometimes you can't help that. What you can help is the culture of trust that you create. So thank you so much, Tiffany, for finally getting this interview to happen.
Thank you so much. It's so great to talk to you.
It was worth the wait.
Really important messages to get out, and I'm really glad we did it. Thank you.
For sure. So for those of you who've enjoyed watching this episode or listening to this episode, feel free to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Definitely subscribe to Work 2.0, the newsletter, as well on Substack. Give us a good rating wherever you found this podcast, and share this episode with your co-workers. And if you have any questions for Tiffany, feel free to pop it in the comments and I will direct it to her and see if she can respond. All right, I'll see you in next week's episode of Work 2.0, the podcast.